Hello and welcome to Green Pass Gaming Sunday podcast. I am your host Flap, and tonight we have a fantastic show lined up for everyone. A bit of fun and games. We got some hot news stories, and as ever, we have a fantastic panel with us this evening. So without any further ado, I'm going to go straight into the panel this week. And as you may notice, we are a man down in the GPG crew. Pucks, unfortunately, can't be with us. He's had his second COVID jab and he's feeling pretty rough, so he's had to bail on this evening's events, unfortunately. But wish him well soon, and hopefully you're going to feel better soon, Pucks. But he did, over the weekend, manage to capture the game footage that you're seeing on the screen, which is a game called Recompile. It's in Game Pass. I think it came out actually last year. It's an interesting game. I don't think we was chatting in the green room about it. It's not a game that's lit everyone up on the panel, but anyone in the chat, I'll be interested to know how you've got on with Recompile if you've given it a go. But let's move on to tonight's panel, introduce them, and we'll start with the guest. We'll go in order on the screen. Mav from Fun Speculation, welcome to the show, my friend. I think last time you was on, I wasn't hosting, but now it's good to have you back, my friend. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. That's right. Yeah, last time I was here, you were away. So yeah, this is good to be back with you, and then also this awesome panel. But unfortunately, Puxley's not here this time. So maybe one day I'll come back on the show and I'll have Flap and Puxley together. That'd be great. But yeah, I love the topics that we have to talk about. So I'm looking forward to some great discussion and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting tonight because three of us are PS5 owners. Scott, I don't believe you own a PlayStation 4. So It's going to be interesting to talk about PlayStation tonight because obviously, it'd be interesting to see from your perspective because I know you've mentioned a few times that actually some of Sony's strategies are actually putting you off at the moment. So perhaps we'll tackle that. And while you're on, welcome to the show, Scott. How are you, my friend? What sort of week have you had? What have you been playing?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much, Flap. Looking forward to the show tonight. Obviously, it's great to have Mav on. It was actually, last time you were on, Mav, it was me, you, Luke was hosting that week, I think, and it was Indy. So it was a completely different week that time. So at least you got one of the two. Hopefully next time you'll have a full house. This week's actually been a little different. Obviously, been continuing my playthrough of Psychonauts 2. I'm really enjoying that. It's getting better and better as I play it, which is great to see. But I've been checking out some other games, just kind of mix it up, particularly from a multiplayer perspective. So I've been playing like Diablo 3, Phantasy Star Online. Christ, I even booted up FIFA the other day for the first time in a long time, just to play some.
You must have been bored.
So yeah, but you know what it is, Flap? I think I play a lot of, well, from a multiplayer perspective, a lot of Apex Legends, and I really just needed something different when like I say, when playing multiplayer. You know, I'm not a big fan of COD. Obviously, Battlefield's still some way out. Halo's still a little while off as well. So let's just try and mix it up a little bit. So yeah, a fair bit of variety this week.
No, fantastic. What did you make of the Battlefield 2042 sort of footage that was released earlier in the week? Did you like what you see? Because most people are saying it looks a little bit like Call of Duty, so I don't know kind of how that sat with yourself.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm going to be honest with you, Flat. I didn't see it. Really, for that game, I don't need to see anything else. I'm going to buy it day one. So I saw some of the beta footage or the technical alpha footage that Apple shouldn't have got out there, but did. And I like what I saw. It's one of those things where I don't feel like I need to see anything else. I'll try to take part in the open beta that's rumored to be taking place later this month, obviously just to get a proper feel of it. But yeah, I didn't actually check any of it out. But you saying that it's more COD doesn't sit well for me. I'm not going to lie, but I'd rather play it and get a proper feel for myself, because I got proper Battlefield 3 and 4 vibes.
It gave me some Warzone vibes, actually. Luke, did you... welcome to the show, my friend, by the way. Did you manage to catch up and see some of that footage?
No. I think I saw some of the specialist stuff that they put on Twitter.
Yeah,
the kind of small clips.
Yeah, that's what I'm on about, but there's some small clips. Of those, seeing them running around and the sort of gunplay and stuff.
Yeah, so I saw those. They look really nice. I wouldn't say it looked Call of Duty-ish. I mean, they're very kind of controlled setting clips, aren't they? In terms of that they're lining stuff up to make it look in a particular way. So, it looked really nice. I think I'll have to. I'm not day one for it because I'll have to wait and see because it's multiplayer only. But it's definitely the most excited I've been by a Battlefield game for a long time.
That's interesting.
So
that's great. I meant to ask you actually, are you day one for Far Cry 6? Just while we're there.
I don't know. I mean, the previews came out this week, as I'm sure you know, and I think a lot of people kind of up and down on it. Up in the sense that it's more Far Cry, and down in the sense that it's more Far Cry. And I'm not. That doesn't being more Far Cry doesn't bother me at all. What did really bother me about the previews was that they've kept a lot of the RPG mechanics they had in New Dawn. So things like certain areas of the map are, the enemies are higher level than you, so it can be difficult to kind of clear them out and stuff like. I hate that. I mean, it's typical Ubisoft,
didn't they, Luke?
Yeah, no, it's exactly the same.
Mechanic,
it's exactly the same. I don't know if they've got loot. Kind of rarity weapons like they did in New Dawn. I didn't see that, but they've definitely got the levels of enemies, which is just not good. I mean, it's an open world sandbox game. It's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be gated by anything apart from what you want to do in it. So, I'll wait and see. I mean, that will probably be a PC purchase for very cheap somewhere. If I do get it, but I'll wait and see what the reviews look like on it.
Yeah, if you're expecting it to be anything other than Far Cry 5, I think we're all going to be disappointed in me. It's just going to be more of the same, isn't it? That's just what Ubisoft do.
Yeah, and I don't mind it with Far Cry. It's the one franchise that I don't mind that if it's more of the same, but it's not really more of the same because Far Cry 5 didn't have those mechanics in them. They were introduced in New Dawn, and I hated them. So if that's the direction they're going, then I'm out of that franchise altogether until they change that bike because
that's the last one. That will be that door closed.
No more Ubisoft.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There's not a game that I'm looking forward to any less than I think Far Cry this fall.
Really?
If I'm being honest.
You guys are killing me.
Big releases. Out the big releases, I don't think there's one that really interests me any less than Far Cry.
Go on then, Mev. Turn this ship around.
Far Cry is fun. It's just a big open sandbox of glorious first-person shooter fun. That's what it is. I'm so
one to five were. New Dawn wasn't. Did you play New Dawn?
Well, New Dawn, I never really liked any of the spin-offs, like Blood Dragon, Primal, New Dawn. They're not like the main line. Like Far Cry 6 looks like Far Cry 3 on crack, right?
Far Cry 6 looks like New Dawn.
No,
go and play New Dawn. Go and play New Dawn, and then you'll see.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but like also, this is the first time on console we're getting Far Cry at a high resolution at 60 frames. And if you've played any of the Far Cry games with FPS boost on, even though you lost the resolution on when you did that, it inherently changes the complete feeling of the game, and it is almost like a new experience for me. And going into Far Cry 6, what I'm thinking of, it's more Far Cry. Not only that, it's more dense, more of everything I've loved about Far Cry in the mainline Far Cry games. Plus, you also have it at the high resolution at 60 frames. So I am super looking forward to this. It's my number. It's tied with 2 or 3 anticipated game for this year.
Wow. Go on. What's the other two? Obviously, Halo Infinite. I guess that
Halo Infinite's number 1. Then Battlefield 2042. And I keep going back and forth. Like, one's multiplayer, right? And then the other one is like my personal like experience. But the other thing is I keep forgetting that they announced Far Cry 6 has also got co-op throughout the entire campaign. Jump in, jump out. Yeah. So that's going to be a blast playing with some of my friends too. So
5 did as well, didn't it? I'm sure 5 did.
Yeah, 5 did as well. And the co-op was excellent in there. Like what I think a lot of people are disappointed with Far Cry is not necessarily some of the gameplay mechanics and stuff. And I don't like the homemade weapons and stuff that much, but there's also real weapons too, right? What I love most about it is that they chose to put the resources into making it more of a bigger Far Cry game, as opposed to having to go after all those next gen bells and whistles and making a more focused, compact experience. I want the bigger sandbox. And if you look at it, everything they showed, which they showed an hour of gameplay, just unapologetically, right? They're just like, here's what Far Cry is. It's so refreshing to see that much of a game before it comes out, that they stand behind it. And it, you know what it looks like? It looks like Far Cry. That's that disappoints a lot of people, but that also, for people that really love it, like, excites a lot of people, you know? So
it's going to be interesting. Yeah, like you say, it's going to be interesting to see kind of just how it plays when it's actually in our hands. I've never actually bought a Far Cry game at launch. I'm always one of those that picks it up kind of a couple of months down the line, just once everyone says they either like it or hate it. But so to be honest, I tend to like
first. So
I tend to like the Far Cry games, but I don't know. They're a bit of a slow burner for me. It takes a while for me to get into the story and right into them. But okay, interesting stuff. Well, thank you very much. Fantastic. Well, chat, thank you. You've been great already. Wow, so many people here. So welcome to the show, everyone. Just do a very quick roll call. I do apologise if I don't get to your name, but Ballman Gamer, Stubbs, Museko, Tukungulu, it's Timmy. I saw Caitlin in the chat earlier as well. Powerman 4K. Who else have we got? Just scrolling up. Sorry, Whiz is faster. Video goes 3 bits here. Fantastic. Great to see everyone here. So thank you very much. And we're going to go diving straight into this first topic. And it's kind of it's been a fairly PlayStation centric week in the gaming news world. And that's, I don't apologise for that. Like I say, we are Xbox centric, but we do focus on PlayStation and Nintendo as and when we need to. And we also call them out as we do Microsoft when we think we need to. And obviously the news in this week's story for PlayStation was it kind of set the internet on fire, particularly PlayStation fans, it seems. But so they announced that the upgrade path for Horizon Forbidden West, that they released the upgrade path if you are currently a PlayStation 4 owner but eventually want to upgrade to the PS5 version, was very convoluted. In fact, you did a video on it yourself, didn't you, Mav? Kind of just breaking down what you're going to need to buy if you want to upgrade from one to the other. And the internet has been kind of calling out Sony on it, and rightfully so. And, there's been throwbacks to, is this the arrogant Sony we're seeing again that we saw at the beginning of the PS3 era? When they mentioned if you can't afford a PS3, well, then get a second job, that kind of thing, It did seem quite an arrogant move, in my opinion. Perhaps not everyone saw it that way, but I know a lot of PlayStation fans were kind of upset with this has happened yet again. And perhaps we'll come to you first, Mav, if that's okay. What did you make of it in general? Because it just seemed like a really odd move to me, to be honest. And not so much in what they did, but when you compare that, and I'm going to try and leave as Xbox out of this as best I can. I'm just going to try and focus on Sony, but you can't ignore the fact that Xbox have set the precedent and the backdrop of smart delivery. What do you think Sony were playing at when they were going to charge people extra for the upgrade like that? It just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, so this is a very controversial topic apparently, because if you speak on it too much, you come across as like an Xbox fanboy or whatever. Because regardless, I own a PlayStation, right? This affects anybody who owns the platforms because it is reflective of the cost of games, right? So when you call out things like this, you're speaking out on behalf of the gamer towards the industry as a whole. And in this specific stance, it's a platform holder in Sony, which they should be setting the example like Xbox and like major publishers do. Now, other major publishers are also doing bad things as well, which has been spoken out upon. But it seems like people have been accepting of it and have been defending of it, which is kind of strange to me, because the only way originally that you could upgrade this was if you actually bought the $80 digital deluxe edition, meaning you had to pay $80 instead of $70 to get the PS4 and PS5 versions originally. And that was after they had already said they were going to give a free upgrade for this game. And then they were trying to use the loophole that it was delayed out of the launch window to get by that, right? So people called, rightfully so, like you said, people called BS on it. They spoke on it. People made videos. People reached out on Twitter, said enough that it got them to look at it and be like, realize, hey, we screwed up on this. Let's reverse this, right? So props to everybody who spoke up on it and got them to change that. Now we are getting what they promised, which is Horizon Forbidden West PS4 version with a free upgrade to PS5 version. So that is great. But in with that news came also going forward, all cross-gen games are going to have a $10 upgrade fee. So that is that in one positive light that sets a clear expectation for God of War, Gran Turismo 7, etc. Any other games that are cross-gen, it sets that clear precedent. But the downside is that's still not really what other companies are doing. There's some that are doing this, and there's some that aren't. The reason this exists is because of $70 games. It's that next-gen tax. When Sony aligned with EA, Activision, Take-Two on next-gen games cost $70, that set in motion this precedent and created all these problems to begin with. That's where the $10 upgrade fee exists, is the price difference between PS4 and PS5. So for anybody upset about the $10 upgrade fee going forward, if you accepted the fact that there's $70 games, that's why this is here. So there's an argument to be made over the $70 game. And is that justified? Is it a necessity? Is it needed? I don't believe it's needed. I don't believe it's a necessity. I believe that they're charging $70 because they can. If it was a necessity, current gen games would also be $70 from those same publishers, as there's way more of those consoles out there than there is next gen. The reason they're doing it on next gen only is because you're starting with a smaller sample size of that premium customer that is willing to pay more. It's affecting them. They're accepting of it. Okay. And as more people get into the fold, that precedent is already set as an expectation, and people move into that next gen with that $70 price tag being there. And in the future, all the other publishers will follow suit because a precedent has been done. And in fact, you can't tell me that Xbox and other publishers that haven't done the $70 thing like Ubisoft aren't super happy about the other ones that have dove on that sword, because they are shifting the price upwards on games. And now, whether it's needed or not, that's the argument, right? I would argue that it's not, because profits are up. Profits are up in all the earnings reports from all of these companies at their quarterly reports. Profits are increasing in record numbers over the past 18 months. And for them to, for people even to come out there and say it is due to the need, is just like, it doesn't make sense. Now, if you want to say, okay, that's what I feel like they're worth, and I feel like it's justified paying that, that's fine. People can justify paying whatever they want, right? But if you're going to justify it by saying they need to charge $70, I call BS on that. PC has never had these upgrades, right? PC has the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. We're not even getting that as good a PC, good versions of a lot of the games on console as PCs are getting with their 3090 graphics cards and all that, but they're paying $10 less, right? So this whole thing and this convoluted mess comes from the $70 price tag on next gen games. And if didn't exist, then there wouldn't be an issue.
So do you think Sony, because obviously they've now backed down and kind of gone back, and I don't know if they'd forgotten that Jim Ryan had already said that he was going to obviously offer the Horizon game with a free upgrade path or not, and they were just trying their luck. But they've obviously gone back on that, and if you buy the PS4 version, you can upgrade to the PS5 version for free. Now, I'm assuming that you'd have to actually download it on the PS4 digital version, for $60, I believe it is. And then I guess if you have a PS5, you could sign into there, download it, and get a free upgrade to the PS5 version. I'm guessing that's how it's working. Have they set a precedent with this? Do you think going forwards with their next gen first party titles? Can they go back to this convoluted sort of pricing system? Because they did it with the director's cut and Ghost of Tsushima as well, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they set the expectation now on their new cross-gen games with the posting they made. They said that there's going to be a $10 upgrade fee going forward for any games that launch on PS4 and PS5 that are Sony first-party games. That includes God of War and Gran Turismo. They already set the precedent that those will be $60 on PS4 and $70 on PS5, with the option to upgrade the PS4 copy to the PS5 version for $10. Right. So that's what they're setting now. This one they did for free because they had already promised that with the launch window games that they had promised people before. And then Jim Ryan even said in a different interview about Horizon Forbidden West being one of those games. So that's why they kind of I think they got caught with their tail between their legs here, and we're like, oh crap, we were not even thinking about this, that it was pushed back so much because we forgot that we misled people thinking it was a launch game, which they probably obviously knew it was never going to be. Right. There's no way they could have possibly thought this was a launch window game when it's going on over almost a year later, and it's going to be a year and a half after that without getting it. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't really make sense with a lot of their a lot of their talk ahead of time is always followed up by doing something completely different. Right? Like they say something and then something else happens and you're like, wait a second, like this, you said something else completely different like a few months ago. I don't know who's in charge of like setting the standards there of what their business models are, but it's like they don't have a clear vision for what they're doing right now.
That was kind of the point of the sort of the heading. Are they just arrogant or are they just confused with knowing how to handle this?
Because, they're arrogant.
Yeah. You don't think they're just confused because they don't have a smart delivery program quite like Xbox. So you don't think it was just a matter of them kind of being a bit confused about how to handle the upgrade path. You just think they were actually after the dollar.
Their arrogance comes in the fact of not making it a priority.
Okay.
Like if it was if the consumer was the number one priority. As what I'm not saying, like obviously all businesses profit is the number one priority, right? They're trying to make money, right? But there's justifiable ways of doing that, and then there's like kind of messed up business practices that get used for those purposes, and people need to call out when those messed up business practices come into play, right? And here it's like they're so like not paying attention and focused on what the clear model is that's going to be their path for the consumer, that the consumer gets lost in all this, and it's just a bunch of mixed messaging. That goes back to the launch of the PS5, going with the all our games, we believe in generations and all this stuff, and then trying to use the excuse of haptics for charging $10 extra for the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut upgrade fee on there, right? Like there's a bunch of misrepresented, misinterpreted things that they put out there that's just like don't make any sense for the consumer, and the arrogance comes into not focusing and making that a priority for clear messaging and standards. So the one benefit of this is at least there's a clear path forward now. That's the positive. We know exactly what their model is going to be, but it took a huge screw up like this for that to happen. Like this should never happen. Like now, arrogance comes in the fact that they're the market leaders, so they feel like they don't have to, I guess. Whereas Xbox wasn't, so they were very focused and clear on what they were doing. Right. I still just don't believe in the whole $70 games thing. Like it's just not needed or necessity. So that's where all this comes from.
That's an interesting point. And Scott, we'll come to you next if that's. I got two questions for you actually. On the back of that, do you think Microsoft kind of brought smart delivery about because of Game Pass and the fact that it was going to be quite an easy win for them. It was obviously going to be quite a consumer-friendly move to have a free upgrade path to the next-gen version of consoles. And let's face it, Xbox were trailing in console sales and numbers and stuff, and so they obviously wanted to raise that in order to get their subscription service up to for Game Pass, get those numbers up. But also, how do you feel as someone who doesn't own a PlayStation 5? Would this put you off from considering buying a PlayStation 5, or is it not a consideration at all?
Yeah, I'll tackle the first one first. The second question first, Flap, if that's okay, because we, and more specifically, Luke and I briefly discussed this earlier in the week when the news first came out. And yeah, as somebody who doesn't own a PlayStation 5, and let's be honest, if I wanted to own a PlayStation 5 now anyway, the likelihood of me getting one is rather slim. So I probably wouldn't even be able to get one if I wanted. But I did discuss at the time the actually a desire maybe to pick up a PlayStation 4 or maybe PlayStation 4 Pro. Having never owned a PS4, I missed out on a lot of the classics from that generation, God of War, Last of Us, etc. Games that I haven't had a chance to play yet because I didn't own a PlayStation 4. So it was something I considered. They're actually unbelievably hard to get now anyway, and even secondhand, they're still rather expensive. But as somebody who's maybe thinking, right, I'll go to PS4 first and then maybe upgrade later, absolutely it's a consideration because if I did want to pick up a PlayStation 4, right, I could pick up Horizon Forbidden West early next year. And then if I want to pay them another 400 quid or whatever to get a PlayStation 5, I've then got to pay them, well, at the time, obviously, before they backtracked yesterday. At the time, I would either have to upfront with an extra 15, 20 quid or whatever it is here in the UK, or I would have to rebuy the PS5 version of the game when I do decide to make that jump. So absolutely, it's a consideration. It is something that second guesses or makes me second guesses to like whether I want to jump in now, whether I want to wait for a PlayStation 5, or whether I want to jump in at all. One of the things I discussed with Luke as well at the time was, look, do I now just wait for the PC versions? I'd rather buy a PC and then hopefully with the acquisition of Nixus, that might increase the speed of which these games come to PC. Obviously, we've seen that with Death Stranding. We potentially are going to see maybe an Uncharted collection come across as well. Maybe after the Nixus acquisition, that will happen maybe a little bit more often and maybe a little bit quicker. But at the same time, then again, there's no guarantees. And even if they do come, it could be 2, 3, 4, maybe more years that those come out. So as a potential customer of Sony's, yeah, it absolutely is a consideration because there's only so much, well, first of all, time I've got to go around, and probably more importantly, there's only so much money I've got to go around as well. So it is really difficult to look at it and go, right, do I want to buy, how much is PlayStation 5 in the UK actually? Is it 375, 450?
Yeah, it depends which one you get.
Digital. Do I want to pay, say, 450 and then spend an extra 60 quid on Ratchet, and then for Horizon, then spend another 80 quid there. And as a value proposition, obviously everybody's position when it comes to value is going to be different. I think it's hard to justify at this moment in time, and particularly with the news that the news about God of War and Gran Turismo 7, while they've established sort of a clear path for future games, so there's no doubt now what's going to happen in the future. Again, the same question exists. If I was to get a PlayStation 4 to pick up God of War, I know if I want to play the best version of that game in the future, I'm going to have to pay another £10 to play a game that I've already bought and likely played, just to play it again in higher fidelity. And I think that's a little, difficult to swallow as a consumer, to be perfectly honest. So, and I know you mentioned at the beginning, you don't want to bring Xbox into it, but it's super difficult to do that, really, isn't it? It's almost impossible, particularly if you already own an Xbox, because you might say you can't compare them, different types of games, whatever. But as a consumer, you cannot not compare the two, because I've played Psychonauts 2 right now. I didn't pay anything extra beyond my subscription. I'm going to be playing Forza Horizon 5 later this year. I could play it on my Series S, my Series X, my PC. I could play it on my Xbox One, and it's all included. So just as a consumer, it's just better, at least in my opinion. But obviously, everybody's position is going to be slightly different. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'll probably just wait and see, and maybe I get a PlayStation 5 in the future, and maybe those games will be cheaper. Then it won't necessarily be something that bothers me too much. But as somebody who's potentially looking at one now, I can see why that might impact their decision making. What was the first question again? Actually, Flav, apologies, I forgot about that.
Oh God, I can't remember now. That was a long time ago. It was to do with Microsoft. I can't remember. I asked if you were going to buy, if it was going to change your mind for the PlayStation. Oh, and whether the smart delivery side on Xbox was kind of an easy win for them because they got the servers, that they've got the infrastructure to do this thing quite easy, and so have Sony. To be fair, it's not that they haven't got that, but obviously coming from behind, shall we say, I think it's not helpful to talk in terms of winning and losing generations. But if we were to use that, I would think it would be kind of unanimous that PlayStation won the generation in quotation marks in terms of units sold, PlayStation sold and stuff. So Xbox were obviously sort of coming from behind with regards to this. And did you think this was quite an easy win for them to make that aspect, the consumer friendly aspect of it, an easy win over Sony?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the pro-consumer moves that Microsoft made during the Xbox One generation were done almost out of necessity because of, ignore winning or losing, even if PlayStation didn't exist, the Xbox One generation was obviously a disappointment for Microsoft in terms of the hardware sales, even though obviously they don't necessarily care about it, but just they talk about MAU being their sort of key metric these days, but the more hardware you've got, at least at the time, the more monthly active users you're going to potentially have access to. So I think things like backwards compatibility, Game Pass, smart delivery, these are all services, or what a lot of people thought at the time to be buzzwords, were all created out of almost necessity to establish themselves as the pro-consumer brand, because they need to differentiate themselves from Nintendo and Sony. They couldn't just offer or try to offer the same thing as those guys, because those both Sony and Nintendo were doing it better than them, I think, in a lot of cases. And the hardware sales, if we speak about hardware sales, reflected sort of Sony's position in the market. And I think they needed a way to carve out their own. I was going to say niche isn't the right word, because it's certainly not a niche with however many millions of Game Pass subscribers they've got, but it's certainly to carve out their place in the market. What differentiates Xbox to PlayStation or Nintendo? And Game Pass was born out of that. Smart delivery was born out of that. Now, ultimately, we consider all these pro-consumer moves, but there's no doubt about it, they're doing it for the long-term gain, where they're hoping to establish more customers because of these pro-consumer moves, and ultimately to earn more money and more profit. So even though to us they're pro-consumer, the end goal for both these companies is exactly the same. Just Microsoft's had to do it differently because of the position that they found themselves in during the Xbox One generation, at least in my opinion.
And that's the thing with perhaps Sony, in the fact that it feels like they haven't quite caught up at the moment. Profit's not a dirty word. Like you say, they're all in it for the profit and the money, and absolutely. But Microsoft seem to be doing it in a way that just seems a hell of a lot more consumer friendly, and it just is. It just is. Whereas Sony are kind of, brute forcing their way through this. And like you say, it has upset the Sony fans. And I think Stubbs mentioned earlier, is it Sony fans doing it? Yeah, absolutely is. I follow quite a few hardcore Sony fans on YouTube and stuff, and even they're calling Sony out on this. And thankfully, Sony have turned this situation around. Luke, I left you to last for a reason. Now, obviously, you're a PlayStation 5 owner anyway, so this doesn't necessarily affect you directly, but does that change your opinion of this particular topic? Do you think Sony were being arrogant with this? Were they going down this whole sort of Nintendo route of, people will just buy it because we'll do it? Or do you think it was just bad judgment on their part?
Yeah, I think it was. I feel like it was probably bad judgment. Funnily enough, I mean, when I heard about the upgrade path and then read the blog posts that people were referencing, it's funny how bad drafting will result in multiple different meanings of something. Because the first thought that I had when I read the original post was that they weren't referring to Horizon at all. They were referring to Miles Morales and Sackboy, etc. So I didn't really get the hubbub.
Sorry, just on that point, they did specifically say Horizon in that post, though, didn't they?
They did specifically say they did specifically say the words Horizon, but again, this is a symptom of bad drafting, and the problem with bad drafting is it leaves it open to interpretation.
Yeah,
this is, we're talking to a lawyer, don't forget.
Yeah, I do this for a living. So then they referred to launch titles. They didn't say launch window titles. They didn't say anything like that. They said launch titles, and they just used free launch titles in the prior clause. Essentially, they'd also mentioned Horizon. It wasn't that. I mean, so when I read that, I didn't have the hubbub. There was a separate interview with Jim Ryan where he did seem to more directly refer to things like Horizon, which I think was a bigger issue. And then, obviously, funnily enough, they came out and said, "Oh no, we did mean Horizon. We did mean to, Horizon was included in that element of launch games because we were actually referring to launch window, which is good that they've clarified that. But it's very confusing language that they used originally.
Yeah, but is that not just them worming out of this, though, Luke? Is that not them just changing the narrative slightly to get themselves out of a sticky situation?
Well, I mean, equally, they could have just said, "Well, we weren't referring to Horizon," couldn't they, and just not done any of this? So they could have used that for their own gain if they wanted to.
It would have been really taken negatively, because I think that even like if technically they want to go by like the wording that they used to get around things, like it would come across really slimy if they did that, because it's pretty obvious of what they had meant. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think it was obvious what they meant, but I think that was the problem with the post. But clearly, they knew what they meant, and they thankfully went back to clarify. Yes, we did mean that, and therefore we're going to do this, which is good. And you're right that if they'd have relied on a failing of their own drafting of their own prose to say, well, actually, we didn't mean that, it would have looked incredibly bad. So it's good that they did. Personally, and again, I will fully admit to being a very selfish gamer. I did not care at all, because ultimately it doesn't affect me, because I have a PlayStation 5. I was going to buy it day one anyway on that console, and obviously I'm not doing an upgrade path from the PS4 version.
Luke, just on that point, do you mind if I ask, though, as a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 owner, and maybe going back to what Mav mentioned earlier in the show about his opinion being that it stems from the increase in games from generation to generation. How do you feel as a consumer having to pay more for these PlayStation 5 games compared to PS4 games? How does that factor into you thinking, or is it just kind of one of those things where you accept it and you see the value in these games because they're good games?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, but again, I think the point you made is it's very difficult to give an assessment of that, because value assessment is entirely subjective.
Yeah.
So for me, do I think, if I think the price of a PS4, and I know this isn't quite how it works, but if I think the price of a PS4 game is, £60, and I think the price of a PS5 game is 70, do I think, at least referring to, let's say, the $10 angle upgrade, do I think that there's value in, do I think that it's justifiable that they charge £10 for that, the premium, as it were, for the next gen? Well, in some respects, yes, because clearly they would have had to do more work, or they'd have had to do some work So then it becomes a value assessment. Do I think it's worth £10? A lot of people will look at, the Ghost of Tsushima upgrade for PS5 and go, that's absolutely not worth a £10 upgrade or a $10 upgrade. And I think that's entirely fair because ultimately it's your money. Do I think?
But that's not. But that's not how games are made, though. I mean, you don't start at the bottom and work up. Surely you start at the top and work down. I mean, surely, if anything, isn't the £10 or $10 premium for PS5 owners actually funding the PS4 version of the game?
But we don't know because none of us are developers. So how do we know?
Well, it goes into more than this. We know because Battlefield 2042 is $60 on PC, and it has a higher spec than console. Period.
Yeah, the PC side of things does make it an interesting comparison because you look at, I don't know, a game. Let's say, for example, I can't. It's the thing is because Sony don't release their games on PC very often, it becomes slightly difficult. Yeah. But if you look at something, let's say, for example, I don't know, Doom Eternal. Just to pluck an example out there, you've got obviously the ultimate version of that game with ray tracing. It might be a bad example, apology for this, but you've got the ultimate version of that game on PC. Essentially, it's going to be better than anything that the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5 compare because, or at least theoretically, if you've got the appropriate hardware. So at that point, the only difference if you were to use PC as a comparison point, and obviously you may not want to, is the potential control support with things like haptics. But I think Mav's right. These games are going to be targeted and spec beyond the PlayStation 5 in a lot of instances. At least other games. Well, I appreciate Sony are releasing their games day and day on PC, so it's a more difficult comparison. But I think the overall point around game development, particularly those that are targeting PC, already have that high spec beyond current gen games consoles. I guess
the point of comparison there is that if you're having to add ray tracing and having to add next gen features to your games, that's not a thing. It has never been a thing because there's been games that have been higher spec than Series X and PS5 actually for a while now.
Well,
right?
Put it this way then. Do you not think the development costs generally have increased over the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, but so have profits.
Yeah, I do hear that argument a lot, actually. Look, and the one thing that I think's important to say about that is so is the consumer base, I think. So they're selling a lot more of these games, even if, they're not necessarily...
it's an infinite supply.
The amount of sales they're getting, at least in my opinion, are increasing to offset those costs. You don't necessarily have to increase the price just because it's more expensive if you're selling more of the thing, because it doesn't cost more to produce it. Well, I guess it does, but obviously marginally increases the price to produce another disc or to the bandwidth for another download.
But that's not necessarily right because we're talking about game sales, right? So you're right in that the consumer base is increased. Let's say there's more people playing games than ever.
Yeah,
but that doesn't necessarily correlate to sales of a particular game being higher.
True.
We know that's not correct. So and if let's just take Game 1 that sells 5 million copies. Game 2 comes out and let's say Game 1 sells 5 million copies. It costs $10 million to make. Game 2 comes out and it sells 6 million copies, but it costs $30 million to make. Then clearly there's a price value differentiation there that doesn't need to be met. I get what Mav's saying. It doesn't need, the business doesn't have to go, well, otherwise we're in the hole on this. They're probably still profitable, right? But there's still a justification there for a higher price. And I'm not, defending a corporation putting up its game prices, but I'm certainly alive to the fact that we're not particularly owed anything as consumers. If you don't want it, then the adage is don't buy it. And the only way you'll go against the practice.
Well, that's why they haven't raised the price of $70 on current gen, because they know it's going to affect the sales. The reason that they're implementing it on next gen is because it's a smaller sample size, and also it's more of a justification. So that way they're not throwing it all in at everybody at once. They're training the consumer by limiting it to a smaller portion and easing people into that ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. But there's always been price raises, or generally price raises at the beginning of generations. It's just usually then they're either phased out after a while. I remember when the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 came out, the game prices were higher than what was on the PS3 and Xbox 360. But by the time you'd hit the midpoint or the end point of the generation, they'd floated back down. So yeah, I see that point. But it's a really difficult question, because ultimately it comes down to, one, how much do you care, and two, how much do you value something, and really, are you going to vote with your wallet? Are you
No,
I
won't. I'll begrudgingly pay with my wallet, and argue about it the whole way down there to pay $7.
Well, exactly. I mean,
to
some extent,
right.
Sony, to some extent, Sony. I don't particularly like the way. There's absolutely no denying that Microsoft's way of upgrading your game cross-gen is a better way. Not just, in terms of value, because you don't pay anything, but practically it's so much easier to do it on, for a series console. Do I think Sony is as bad as Nintendo at some of this? No. Do I think they're trying to go that way? Not necessarily. I just think that probably, like you said, Flap, they didn't really think this out very well from the beginning, and now they're kind of scrambling to be like, okay, we need to set a very clear message of how we want to do this, which they have now. And obviously it's only, things like smart delivery and the dual entitlement stuff and all of this stuff, it's only relevant so long as there are cross-gen games. In a couple of years, this will be forgotten to the wind, a lot of this stuff, because there won't be any of those anymore.
What I think part of the problem is for Sony is that there's no direct comparator anymore. Microsoft have denied the direct comparison to a certain degree with all of this, because obviously, if Microsoft were doing the same thing, we probably wouldn't even really be having this conversation. Let's face it. And again, we have tried to keep Xbox out of this because this is a Sony issue and stuff, and they've kind of found themselves on their own, because obviously Nintendo don't necessarily have a next generation console out there anyway. So it is only really Xbox and Sony, and Xbox are doing something that doesn't really show the need to have to raise these prices like this, because obviously they've got smart delivery and Game Pass as well. So Sony are a little bit out on a limb, and and like you say, let's face it, when we used to buy games back in the day, blimey, when I was buying games on my ZX Spectrum, they were £1.99. Fast forward to 2021, and we're parting with the best part of £70. So obviously game prices have gone up, over that time. But I think perhaps one of the problems, like I say, is there's just no direct comparator for Sony, and they're just out on a limb, and it looks bad for them. But let's face it, if Microsoft hadn't done smart delivery or Game Pass, we'd probably be in the same boat with them as well, to be honest. But
and we eventually will be, because the precedent is being set by Sony, by EA, by Activision, by Take-Two. As consumers get more used to paying the $70, all the other publishers are going to be doing the same thing, because they are actually, if you don't think they're happy about this happening, you're mistaken. Like, Xbox is happy that Sony is doing this, and that EA, Activision, Take-Two, because guess what? When they do it, it's going to be accepted already.
I think Xbox are in an interesting position, though, because unlike any other platform, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, the interesting point that the position that Xbox find themselves in is that all their games are coming to PC day one. So from a price perspective, particularly with things like Xbox Play Anywhere, I don't know how they can't really have pricing different across PC and console. Because if it's Xbox Play Anyway, you buy it on PC, the cheaper price. In theory, you've got it on Xbox and vice versa. And I think that's actually one of the considerations of why Microsoft simply can't increase the price on console, because they know this. They know for a fact they could not get away with that price increase with the PC user bases as well. And obviously, that's something that differs, I think, definitely differs to both PlayStation and Nintendo.
Yeah, I think that it's probably a very important point as well. The reason that, or one of the primary reasons that you could not do this on PC, and you don't see it on PC, is that PC gamers, by and large, are very vocal about this stuff. So, exactly. and I should say, however, that prices have increased on PC over the last few years. If you go on Steam and you look at a brand new launch, it is more now than it was a couple of years ago. It's not much, but it is more. And certainly Epic Game Store's the same. Games are more expensive. I mean, stuff like Metro Exodus and Control, I think they launched for $49.99 or even $59.99 UK pounds. Which is really quite a high price on PC. The difference, of course, is that on PC there are other avenues that you can get games, not illegally, but you can, there are key resellers, etc., that you can go to if you're really dissatisfied with the price. But it certainly wouldn't happen in the PC space, or in the same kind of, there wouldn't be the same acquiescence from people in that space, because it's just not something that's ever really been accepted.
Well, there's a platform holder cost that's been banded around. I mean, I guess Steam and Epic Game Stores can do similar, but the platform holders have always put a premium on games launching on their systems, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been blamed for years for price increases, but actually, there's a percentage in there, and like you say, the more expensive a game is, the more money they make just through the percentage of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right, Flap, in that really, we wouldn't be having the conversation if Microsoft weren't doing what they're doing. But in many respects, Microsoft are the outlier in all of this. They are kind of on their own island doing this, which is great. It's great for them. And it does differentiate them from what everyone else is doing. But it's important to note they are not the standard. They are not what the standard is now.
There's other publishers that are doing the same thing, though, as the Xbox with having one game and then you get both versions. Like Ubisoft games or one.
But they're not worth it anyway.
Like Far Cry 6, for example, you get the you get the Xbox One or you get the Series X, same price, right? There's smart delivery has been kind of adopted by some of the other publishers. So you have some publishers doing this way right now. You have some publishers doing the other way, and the publishers that aren't doing it right now are happy that the other publishers are, because eventually it makes it easier for them to do so. When people get used to it. But the argument that I've just kept trying to make with this online, and I think people get confused like it's an attack on Sony specifically. It's not. It's just about the argument that people make that this is a necessity. It's there's nowhere in any justification that I have seen that dictates that they have to charge $70 for next gen games as opposed to 60. And until somebody actually shows me something that is valid of the reasoning why they absolutely have to charge $70 as opposed to $60 for next gen games, I will stand by the fact that I don't believe next gen games should be 70. I don't believe that a PS4 player should pay 60 and then a PS5 player should pay 70. And in fact, I feel like the people that are even suggesting that, well, why don't they make PS4 games go up just to match it? That way it's fair to the $70 players. That's such backwards thinking, right? Like, well, okay, let's make it better for the company. That way the consumers think it's more fair that are already getting screwed. Right, like that doesn't make sense. And then the other thing with the whole controller thing, I see a lot of people using that. Well, but they add haptics to it, and that that takes more work and all this stuff. If PlayStation came out with a controller that dictates that games need to cost $10 more, that is a problem in of itself as well, right? So you can't use that as a justification. So for me, there's no justification that it is a necessity. They're doing it because they can, and people are willing to pay for it, and that's fine if people are justified that they are willing to spend the money. And I will begrudgingly do it on certain games because I don't want to miss out. But if everybody had spoken up about this when it first got introduced by Activision, right, then maybe we'd all have a different conversation today instead of at the time when this happened. Even all the major media publications and everybody was just saying, it's time, inflation, things go up. You know what happened 2 weeks before that? All of their earnings reports came out and their profits were up like 70%, 100%, 200%, like just crazy numbers all over the place. And then they say they need to justify it just because it's time. It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's my whole argument behind this.
Probably to Luke and Scott, well, and you, Mev, as well. But do you think Sony will have to kind of change? Will they, you say Microsoft's the outlier at the moment.
Microsoft
will that stay the case?
Microsoft will end up charging $70 eventually, as well.
Well, not for first party. Well, I say that. Obviously, if you're a part of Game Pass, they'll be coming to Game Pass, so they won't necessarily charge that, will they?
Well, they still offer their games for sale as well, right?
And if anything, I could probably see Microsoft doing $70 first party games just to push people into subscription.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
that would be a lever to get people into the service, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think. I mean, how do you mean? Do we think Sony will follow suit? Because I mean, I guess in terms of cross-gen games, they won't because they're not doing smart delivery. Do you mean in terms of?
Well, they could though, couldn't they? They could. There's no reason why they couldn't. That's the thing. That's the bit I don't get.
I mean, I guess they could change it again, but it's probably not worth them doing that now because there's only a set limit of cross-gen games to come out, and they've already had to flip-flop from one position to another. So you wouldn't change it. You know, sure, the final position, the Microsoft position, is more consumer-friendly. But if people are happy paying, $10 on the cross-gen games for upgrades, then why would Sony? Sony aren't going to go, oh well, we'll get rid of that free money then. And
the other thing that I would say, Mav, perhaps in Sony's defence, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is that their first-party single-player games don't tend to be heavily monetised outside of the game, do they? Unlike something 100%
like... agree with you on that. Like, if any of them are more excusable than the others, it's Sony because they don't have the microtransactions and stuff. And I would say that it's less excusable for games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, and NBA 2K, and those games are less excusable because they're not only more expensive, but they're also built on storefronts that are accessible within the game. Yeah. So you're 100% right. If you're going to make a case for any of them, that's a fair point to be made as far as Sony's games go. But then I always, when I hear the argument about that and I look at okay, the PS4 versions are still $60. And if the development cost was that much higher, they wouldn't need to up the price on only a smaller section of the amount of sales that they're going to be getting. They would do it across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. I think if anything, I mean, the point about necessity is true because is it necessary? Is Sony or any other publisher developer going to live or die on whether they charge a premium for a next gen version of the game? No, they aren't. Can they justify it? Yes. There are different ways to justify it. Whether you agree with the justifications is different. I think where they become more justifiable is when the games are solely built for next generation, and development budgets we presume, increase for those. Mm-hmm. Again, we don't really know because we don't have numbers, right? So we don't, it's very hard to judge.
The downside to that end, you think of it, right? Like, it makes more sense for $70 games when it's a tighter net single player experience. But then you look at a game that Ratchet and Clank that was $70, and then you look at it as like, okay, that was a good game, but is it a $70 game because it was single player? Like kind of a one. It's just a interesting thing to think about. That's when you
come back to the value question.
Yeah, exactly. That comes back to the value question.
Have different opinions. I think maybe one thing from Sony's perspective, Flav, to go back to your question about will they maybe change it again? I think an important data point for this sort of question is, at least my understanding is, if you compare the cross-gen games that have released so far, something like Miles Morales, these games are massively outselling the PlayStation 5 version of these games are massively outselling the PlayStation 4 versions, despite being more expensive in these cases as well. So I think from their perspective, they're probably looking at, they're probably already seeing that people are willing. I mean, even Mav just mentioned it there. Mav's probably one of the most vocal people I've heard against sort of the increase in things like that. But as Mav said, he's going to pay because he wants to play the games.
Yep.
And that's ultimately the position it's going to come to that. Are people going to pay to play these games at that price point? And I think the data so far suggests absolutely. And from their perspective, that's justification enough. People are willing to pay that extra money for these experiences. So we'll charge them.
Yeah.
You hear people a lot of the time saying things like, vote with your wallet. Yeah, vote with your wallet. If you're not happy with it, don't buy it. But if millions of other people still buy because they're willing to, then that's ultimately what it's going to end up being. You can't change that. So.
No, absolutely agree. And like we say, Sony first party titles are fantastic. Not all of them. We were talking in the green room before, Mev, how Horizon Zero Dawn didn't necessarily light us up, but something like obviously Uncharted absolutely did. And like you say, there aren't large microtransactions in these single player games. So as an argument, like you say, perhaps if anyone's going to argue that it's I'm not going to say that it's worth the extra £10, but perhaps it's offset slightly with the fact that there isn't any in-game microtransactions, unlike a lot of third-party titles. Obviously, you can imagine Far Cry has Ubi coins or whatever it is. I can't even remember what they call them now. But all of that kind of stuff, and Battlefield and all of the Call of Duty, all of the third parties with battle passes and all kinds of stuff going on. So thankfully, Sony games
Xbox has a lot of that as well.
Yeah, well, Halo being a good one, but again, as Luke was saying, if you're part of the Game Pass ecosystem, then it's not so painful to actually spend some money on some armor or whatever it is you want when you consider that you're getting this next gen game as part of the subscription anyway. It does help ease it in the mind, doesn't it? I guess.
Just on the question about games with microtransactions, I've just looked up FIFA 22.
Go on.
Lovely.
So the standard edition for just the PS5 is 70 quid in the UK on the PlayStation Store, 60 quid for the PS4 version. And then the Ultimate Edition, which is PlayStation 4 and 5, is 90 quid. 90 quid to get both editions. For FIFA 22. Crazy. Plus, obviously, all of the microtransaction bullshit that's in that as well. So, we're complaining about Sony here, and, but there are worse examples. I know Mav mentioned NBA.
Yeah, NBA is like $100, or I think.
So there are worse examples of this.
It's bad out there, but nobody's really speaking on that much. That's this was the first one because it was a first-party game that people actually really spoke up on, and that's why the conversation's been driven on because of that $80 thing that they announced, and everybody's like, "What? $80 to get both versions, but I only have a PS4. I can't even get a PS5." That's what a lot of people are saying.
You know what?
So
that's part of the problem. I think this doesn't help the situation in the fact that you can't get a PS5 at the moment, because if a lot of people had PS5s, then they would just buy the PS5 version. But the people that have got PS4s that do want a PS5 by the end of the year or in the next 12 months and want to be able to play the next gen version of the games, they seem to be the ones getting screwed over.
The crazy thing is, as of yesterday, after they announced the price increase, it's still $70 to buy the PS5 version, but PS4 version $60, and you get the free upgrade to PS5. So it's it's interesting. I don't know if they hadn't updated their storefront yet. In fact, I'm going to check on that to see, because they still got some working to do on how to justify the fact that people that only have a PS5 now are going to spend $10 more dollars than people that have a PS4 and then move up to PS5. So we'll see how they do that.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, panel. That's I knew that topic was going to kind of light up the chat and the panel to a certain degree, because it is it is a sticking point. And I'm a PS5 gamer, and I don't want to be paying that extra $10 every single game, PlayStation game that I buy. I just don't want to do it. But I haven't got a choice, and I probably will in the long run. But that does, thankfully, luckily I have both Xbox and PlayStation. I can play a lot of the third-party games over on the Xbox, if they're launched into things like Game Pass and stuff like that. It's a very interesting one.
On the PS5 storefront, it's still $70 for the standard edition. Okay. And it's $80 for the digital deluxe edition.
I don't know. I don't think they've actually addressed it in Flap. I think you touched on it at the beginning. The one question that I haven't seen answered yet is what's just stopping the PlayStation 5 owner buying the PS4 version and upgrading it? Because there is still that price difference between the two. All that they've said is that there's now a free.
They should have just dropped the price, but
so I don't think they've addressed that yet.
No, I don't think there is at the moment. Apart from the fact that you can't. They have said that you can't upgrade through the digital storefront. So if you're PS5 owner, you'll just see the PS5 version digitally.
So I've been told
to buy physical.
I've been told to use the app for the PS4 version potentially. If you use the app to get the PS4 version, and you get the upgrade to the PS5 version. That's what somebody said on a post that I had made. So, because I was curious about that, I was like, why would anybody buy the $70 PS5 version digitally now?
Exactly.
When you can get the $60 PS4 version and get the PS5 version as well, because you don't get the PS4 version with the PS5. So, especially if you have two consoles, if you have a PS5 and a PS4, it definitely makes sense to get the $60 version, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Let's round this topic off now. Chat, you have been fantastic tonight. Wow, so many new faces in the chat as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Now, topic 2 was always going to be a bit of a strange one, and I did ask at the top of the show, and now is your chance, chat. If there's any particular topics or any questions you want to throw at me or the panel, stick them in the chat now, and we'll get them answered. And I believe... I think it was Baldman Gamer threw this one our way. So now I'll come to you first, Mav, if that's okay. If you could bring back an IP that's been in the void for a very long time, what would it be? Which studio struck company would you have do it? And would you have a remake or a reboot or a sequel?
This is easy.
Oh,
Splinter Cell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Splinter Cell needs to come back. It needs to exist. It's ludicrous that it's been an entire console generation without Splinter Cell. I think at this point, because probably Michael Ironside's age, you need a complete reboot. Either that or a tie-in somehow and just completely go take the franchise in a new direction. I've had an idea with the complete concept for this game in my mind with Sarah Fisher, Sam's daughter, being the main protagonist, and Sam Fisher still playing a role as the head of Third Echelon. Sarah Fisher maybe going to save her dad, in the game. So something like that. You could go so many different directions. That way, Michael Ironside could still play a role, but you don't have to worry about him going game after game after game again. So that's a way to reintroduce the character. And as who would I like to develop it? I want Ubisoft to stop focusing on free-to-play, multiplayer shooters, bastardizing the Clancy brand and other things that they're doing, and just put their ace talent together and go reboot it. Maybe Ubisoft Montreal or one of them, because they have the people that were there originally created this franchise, right? So a lot of those people are still there at Ubisoft. I just want them to get the team together and do it. And guess what? It will sell. If you put together the right team, you put the right resources in, and you do this thing properly, it will sell and it will be extremely popular. So Splinter Cell.
Why haven't they done it then? Why haven't this is going to be a big cash generator for them. Why haven't they done it?
I know why they haven't done it, because Ubisoft is convinced that only going forward they need to find ways to monetize all their franchises with different models, and they don't know how to do it with Splinter Cell. They can't figure it out. They probably have meetings and stuff where they sit around the table and figure out, how are we going to make money off of this on like microtransactions and loot boxes and season passes and stuff, because it's a single player focused experience. That's why I want people to buy Far Cry 6, because if they don't, guess what? We may not see another one, and we may not see any more single player focus experiences from Ubisoft.
That's a very valid point, actually, and not one I'd considered really. I can imagine the team coming in, shuffling into the meeting room and sitting down and pitching their game. Yeah. And I can imagine. I can imagine then saying, "Well, okay, so how do we monetize this outside of the cost of the game?" And it's a very interesting point.
And it's easy, because it's the exact reason I do not want Ubisoft to make another Splinter Cell, which I've and ahed about for a long time, because I love Splinter Cell. I absolutely love it. And it's such an incredible franchise and has so many great games. But the Splinter Cell that we will probably eventually get will not be like the Splinter Cells of the past. It will be, they will go, they will put it open world. They'll have outposts. You'll be able to, unless you're level 25, you can't break a neck. Night vision.
Say another word, Luke.
XP boosters for Sam Fisher.
Come on,
all the weapons are loot. Nope. Night vision goggles only unlock after 10 levels. It will literally be that. That's what it will be.
Hear me out.
It's sad because it's true.
Do that, but keep it to Spies versus Mercs. right? Had the Spies versus Mercs mode, which is one of the best multiplayer experiences ever. You can monetize the crap out of that thing, right? Go ahead, have a field day. You know, keep the single player a focused, good experience. And
But
Spies versus Mercs, keep that core gameplay there, and do all that other crazy stuff and monetize the hell out of it. I don't care if that's what it takes to get Splinter Cell
Okay.
back. Go for it.
but
And
why
to be honest,
monetize
that probably will be what it takes.
Well, no, it'll take more than that. Why monetize that when you can monetize everything? Why? What
No,
you know?
don't say it.
You can do everything. This is the thing. Like, it's not going to be like if Ubisoft came out and they were like, you know what, they came out like EA did with Dead Space, and they went, we're going to make this franchise again. It's a reboot of the original, no microtransactions. We're really dedicated to just making it an amazing single player experience. No bullshit. That'd be fantastic. But that's like a fantasy land with this Ubisoft. That doesn't exist. It's everything has to be somewhat on the same cadence and somewhat monetizable to a lesser or greater extent. So the Splinter Cell that you will get, even if you had all of the talent that from Ubisoft Montreal, etc., and I'm sure they could get people back, it will never be that game again, which is why we really have to look to hopefully another developer plug in that gap.
What if they sold off the IP to somebody that's willing to do it?
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't have. No, they won't do it. But who else do you think could make it then, Mev? Who would you entrust?
Xbox has the history. So which studio? I don't know, because it's like I would go with maybe the Initiative, or because remember the Initiative before they were the Initiative, they were Black Tusk. And they had
that was the Coalition.
That's sorry, Coalition. What was the Initiative called? Sorry.
Were they called anything?
They were new. They're brand new, aren't they?
I take it back. Okay, I am talking about the Coalition. Okay, the Coalition, because before they were the Coalition, they were Black Tusk Studios, and when they revealed the project they were working on back in 2013, it was more of a stealthy type oriented game that they're working on, where it had like this guy climbing up this skyscraper, and they had this presentation at E3, and it looked really cool. And then they when Xbox bought Gears of War, they changed them to the Coalition, and then they brought in Rod Ferguson and all that stuff, and they became a Gears of War studio. But hey, they're supposed to be working on a new game now, right? So there's a chance it could go back to that old IP.
I think it's called Shangheist was the name of that IP.
Shangheist.
Shangheist. Okay. Well, that was a code name at least. But yeah, I think that original game was kind of that genre.
Let's open the question to you, Scott. Any old IP that you'd bring back?
You know what it is? I'm really struggling because Mav kind of picked my number one pick. Like, more than anything, I'm in full agreement with Mav that Splinter Cell. Obviously, I wanted to be Chaos Theory or Pandora Tomorrow more than anything else. But I understand the concerns that Luke mentioned about, what a Ubisoft in 2024 or whatever it is when it would come back would actually look like. I think maybe, this one's probably been done to death, but something I guess that's a little obvious is from an Xbox perspective, there are maybe two that maybe stand out. So first of all, Banjo-Kazooie. Having that platformer, and maybe with the most recent acquisition, something like getting Double Fine on that type of game possibly could work. Something like the name, I'm blanking on the name. The little party game on the Xbox, the original one.
Fusion Frenzy.
Fusion Frenzy, yeah. I would love another sort of party game like that. I don't know who would develop something like that though. If I'm perfectly honest, it's hard to imagine, because similar to
Rare?
maybe, yeah, but the Rare of today is nothing like the Rare of the 90s, and similar to the question about who develops Splinter Cell, who develops those types of games these days? There's very few people. I mean, give Banjo back to Nintendo, even if it means it comes to Switch instead of Xbox. See what they could do with it. It's a really tough question, because I think a lot of these games, something like Crimson Skies or Mech Assault, stand out as Xbox franchises that I loved during the Xbox era that simply have died. But again, who do you get to make those types of games? There's not very many mech games around these days. Not too many flying games either, I guess. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, how about you, Luke? It doesn't necessarily need to be Xbox centric. Mine isn't, if I'm honest. Anything?
I would. I love the Silent Hill reboot. I wanted one of those for a long time. In terms of who,
Hassan, obviously.
Hassan, get Hassan on it, and his 4,000 person team, as I'm sure he'll say that he has.
He's good at hype, if nothing else.
Yeah, he's very good at that. But there's a conflation between hype and bollocks there, Flap. So
That's true.
So for me, I mean, in an ideal world, it would have been Sony Japan that made that. It's purely because they had the Siren team, including Kichiro Toyama, who is the director of the original Silent Hill. So it would have made sense. Now Kichiro Toyama has his own studio, which is working on something else, and Sony Japan is effectively no more. Obviously, there's been rumors about this for a long time, and it seems like there might be 2 Silent Hill games being made, one by Bloober, which, to be honest, makes me sick. And then another one by a Japanese studio, which makes me much more optimistic. I don't have a clue who that is, if that's true, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of studios that could do a game like that, really. But yeah, that would have been my dream. Either that or a Metal Gear Solid reboot. I don't know who either.
Yeah,
something like that.
That was mentioned in the chat. Yeah, well, mine's a little bit more PC focused actually, and it's a relatively obvious one. I don't know how the panel will feel about it, but I want Half-Life 3, to be honest. I absolutely love Half-Life.
Interesting.
And obviously, Valve.
You said.
Yeah, Valve is still around to be able to do it as well. There is only one studio that can deliver Half-Life 3. And, to be fair, we have had Half-Life Alyx, but I don't have a VR headset, so I've not experienced that. But I'd love that to come back, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, one last one. We've got one from Stubbs Gaming. Question to the panel: will Xbox copy Halo Infinite's model, so more service? So it's more like a service with Forza and Gears, where they would just keep adding content. Mav, do you think they will? Do you think Gears lends itself to that? How would they do that with Gears?
I think that's what Xbox's goal is behind most of their first-party IP right now. That's including Halo. And that's why Forza Motorsport is called Forza Motorsport instead of Forza Motorsport 8.
8. Yeah.
That's also it could be potentially why Fable is just called Fable. They could potentially even go that route with Fable. Who knows? Come on, I know. Hear me out. Okay, so with their thing investing in Game Pass as the primary platform, they are trying to drive players into Game Pass and then keep them engaged. I'm not saying it's necessarily the right thing to do, but if they're looking at the success that they had with Sea of Thieves, the name Halo Infinite.
I was going to mention that. So do you mean a service like an MMO like Sea of Thieves for Fable?
I mean potentially come out with a experience that it feels complete, right? But have it live on to keep pumping content out to, and have a way potentially of monetizing certain things within the game long term, but also keeping fresh content keep flowing, similar to what they've been doing.
It depends on how they 100%.
I was,
I think Gears, Forza, those are games you can add cars, tracks, modes.
How would you do it with Gears? I'm confused how you do it with Gears.
Well, Gears kind of already is, isn't it? You get operations, you get new maps, you get new operators. Yeah, DLC.
So, great example.
Gears is already there. Gears is already there, Flap.
Yeah, but so like a battle pass type thing, you mean?
Yeah, I believe it's already. I believe Gears 5 has a.
It has battle pass, but it's not like a live service, though, is it? Like they're planning for Halo and stuff like that.
I don't know.
Where it lives on.
How do you define the live service game, Flap?
I guess where it lives on beyond individual kind of rollouts of each game. So rather than having Gears 6, 7, 8, 9, it lives in that in the live service and it's updated there.
You can have a bit
the
of
next
both.
Gears will be Gears Infinity.
Well, that's
Infinity.
what Stubbs was joking about earlier. Yeah, exactly.
No, I genuinely think Gears are already there, Flap. Obviously, how you define live services are maybe a little bit tricky because, Outriders famously or infamously said they weren't a live service game. They were absolutely a live service game, in my opinion. They just didn't want to say like a Destiny comparison. But if you look at Gears, they have new maps, they have new operators, not too dissimilar to say something like Apex or Fortnite, where even if it's just a skin, they have seasons, or what they call operations. I believe they're referred to as Gears. They have a battle pass, and they have DLC. So I think Gears is already there. Forza is already there. Obviously, Halo's going to be there. I think I would personally like to see is I don't mind that type of thing personally. I don't mind live service games at all. I don't mind the approach that 343 are seemingly taken with Halo. Obviously, the proof of being the pudding for that one. But what I really want to see is Microsoft having games that don't fit that model. Games like, hopefully, Perfect Dark, Fable.
Yes.
Obviously, we've seen Psychonauts. I know that's maybe different because it was being in development, but focused single-player games that aren't live service. I don't want everything to have a battle pass. If everything has a battle pass, I'll be bloody pissed.
Starfield will probably be more focused as well, right? It'd be a huge thing, but they may live on like as long as Skyrim has, right? But I don't think it's going to be like a live service thing. But I think a lot of the franchises are. We don't know enough to say exactly what's going to be good or bad, right? Because it depends on what the initial experience is. But you got to look at the cost and time it takes to develop these games, or is years and years, right? And with how hard it is to make these games into full-fledged sequels and stuff like that, I think their approach they're going with more on some of their franchises is to build the franchise as a platform. And that platform is going to live within Game Pass. And when you subscribe to Game Pass, you're going to have access to the world of Halo. You're going to have access to the world of Forza. You're going to have access to the world of Fable. You're going to have access to the world of whatever it is that they end up doing this model with. And when you go into that world, you're going to have new stuff to constantly engage with. And that's going to keep you subscribed to the service, because not everybody's into every certain kind of franchise. If you only like RPGs, they got that for you. If you only like shooters, they want to keep those players that are only in love with those one things invested into Game Pass. So I think that's kind of what they want to do going forward. We'll see how successful it is. But when they announced the 10-year plan for Halo Infinite, automatically I'm like, okay, well, that's what that is. And when they announced the name Forza Motorsport for Forza, I'm like, okay, that's probably what that's going to be. They're going to continuously come out with new cars, new tracks and stuff, and just keep it going and keep you engaged in the service and build the base on groundbreaking tech and engines, right, to where they are going to be sustainable for a long time.
I guess it makes sense for some of those franchises more than others. So I think that's, if you talk about Forza, I don't want to have to buy a new Forza every year if they're happy just to release the new cars or the new maps, I think it makes sense for some franchises, and certainly Forza fits into that category. But when you talk about games that have traditionally or maybe more single player focused, i.e. Fable, I think that's when it gets to the point where we don't want to see games that aren't multiplayer focused. Sea of Thieves makes sense. Again, it's an online multiplayer sandbox. That sort of game makes sense. But something like Fable doesn't make sense. The Elder Scrolls doesn't make sense.
So do it with Elder Scrolls now.
But I guess also I guess there's a difference between, say, DLC and live service, which I think is probably.
Well, I mean, like the Elder Scrolls Online.
Right. Yeah, well, I guess with the ESO, they've kind of got their live service Elder Scrolls. So hopefully Elder Scrolls 6 doesn't have any live service.
That will be a single-player focused game.
Same with Fallout. So it's about getting that balance, I think. And it's fine to have them. I'd even argue it's good to have them. But you do need a variety of games. You do need those games that are one and done, I think, because... Sorry,
I have a question, though. I have a question for you, Scott. I don't mean to interrupt you, but can a single-player game be a live service game?
Can a single player game be a live service?
Oh, isn't Elder Scrolls Online that kind of thing?
But that's an MMO.
It's MMO.
Yeah,
because they're calling Halo Infinite a live service campaign, right? To a 10-year plan. It does have co-op, but you're not. It's not an RPG grinding experience, right?
So I think with Halo Mav, I think it's a really good point. But I think when they talk about live service, and this is actually one of the things that annoyed me a little bit about Justin's comment when he specifically said, "Look, Halo's a live service game where you essentially what they're saying, you need to start." In a live service game, theoretically, it's never finished, and you need to start, and that's why they were talking about dropping certain features to launch. And it annoyed me a little bit because, at least in my opinion, Halo Infinite's campaign is not a live service game.
But I think he's saying it is, which it caught me by surprise, dude. But when he said and when he used co-op not being there at launch as an excuse for it because it's a live service game, he is basically going out there and saying that Halo Infinite's campaign is a live service game.
Well, I think he's referring to the package as a whole, though, right? He's saying that Halo Infinite in of itself is a live service game.
But how can he bundle the co-op as part of that, like as an excuse for the delay with a campaign?
Because
you know what I mean?
Like I get that, but equally, live service just means that there's ongoing content added. I mean, that's the simplest definition of live service.
You don't have to buy the campaign to get the multiplayer. Multiplayer is free to play.
I mean, that's true, and that's definitely live service. I mean, I think that's what they're absolutely referring to. And I guess they may put extra stuff for the campaign, or
I've got no doubt there'll be DLC.
Stuff,
I think there'll be single player stuff in Infinite. Whether that then, because just single player DLC make it live service, I guess it's kind of fuzzy as to what your definition is, but I'm absolutely expecting story based DLC content for Halo Infinite over its 10-year period. Now, whether that makes it live service or not, in my opinion, no. It makes the multiplayer certainly live service, but it makes a single player campaign just a single player with DLC. I like every other game does. But it's an interesting question, Mav, and I guess those lines about what's maybe live service and not is pretty blurry. Like I said, I used the Outright as example. They said that's not. In my opinion, it was or is, but they still haven't released any additional content for it because they spent so long bloody fixing it. But there is going to be additional content for that coming, or at least we would suspect. So it's an interesting question.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to find out more about obviously Halo's live service over the coming months. Hopefully, we're going to have to, aren't we? It's interesting questions actually. So I'm really grateful for the chat throwing them our way. And chat, thank you again. You've been fantastic. I always forget this, but please, if you're new to the channel and you like what you're hearing, please hit the like button. Share this content with people that you think might like it, and subscribe if you're not already. It's fantastic to have you guys on board, and we've got a bit of fun now. Scott, we did promise ourselves a couple of rounds of rent, buy, and destroy, and I think we're going to try and open this up to the chat as well if we can. So let's do a round each first, and then we can open it up to the chat, or do we do it straight for the chat? Do you think, Scott? Because they can be doing that in the meantime.
Yeah, well, I guess the chat can just play along with it. I guess maybe we'll put it to the chat as well as to the panel member. We'll see sort of how people feel. I think what's important to say is this game is purely designed to piss someone off. That's the whole point of it.
Usually me.
Mainly Luke. So there's only one purpose of this game. So I've done it a little bit differently this time. I've kind of got a group of games rather than picking one for each panel member like I did last time. I've just got a couple of games that I grouped together. Some of them kind of make sense. Some of them don't. Ideally, I'll pick somebody who will pick something that'll piss another panel member off, preferably Luke, I think. No, I'm only messing, mate. But so just to go over the rules then, Mav, because I'm not too sure if you heard the show last time. So we're going to have 3 games. I'm going to give a panel member 3 options. You get to buy one, you get to rent one, you get to destroy one. Now, the important thing to note is if you buy it, you get to play the game forever. You'll always be able to play that game. If you rent it, you get to pick it up on the Friday, you got to drop back off on the Monday, you never get to play it again. You just rent it for that one weekend. If you destroy it, that game is erased from Universe Thanos style. But the important consideration is if, say, for example, we pick the first game in a franchise, anything that comes after that game is gone. So it's not just that game, it's anything that came after that. So if, for example, we picked Halo 3 and you destroyed Halo 3, 4, 5, and if they're gone as well. That franchise ended at Halo 2, just as an example. So it's just a little bit of fun. So you got to tell us which one you want to go for. So does that all make sense?
Yes, got it.
Cool. Who wants to go first?
What were the games again?
So I'm going to give. I've got a couple of selections here. So whoever wants to go first, I'll give you a set of 3, and then I've got some others. So who wants to go first?
Go on, I'll get angry first.
All right. Which one do I want to go? So look, I'll give you maybe my indie darlings category.
Oh, okay,
I think
that's good.
so.
Cool.
So buy, rent, and destroy. So the 3 I'm going to give you are Hades, Hollow Knight, and Inside. So you got to buy one, rent one, and then one of them goes away forever. And we've got Indy in the chat, mate, as well. So that's to tread very carefully.
That's
Indy. You may want to hit the mute button for the next few minutes.
That's an incredibly difficult set of games. That's an incredibly difficult set. I think I'm really going to piss some people off here. And I want to preface this by saying that all of these games are fantastic and I love all of them, but I'm being held effectively by gunpoint by Scott at this point to do this.
Yeah.
So
what was the third one? Sorry,
Inside.
Oh, Inside.
Yeah. Talk us through it.
Okay, so I am going to buy Hades, and the reason I'll buy Hades is an absolutely incredible game, but it also has a ton of replayability. So it's a good one to buy because you'll get a lot out of it. It's procedural in many ways. I'm going to rent Inside.
Oh,
and that means I'm going to destroy Hollow Knight. Now, my rationale for that is that
you've just lost a friend.
I've just sorry, Andy. Hollow Knight is incredible, absolutely incredible. I didn't connect as much to Hollow Knight as I did to Hades, and I didn't connect as much to Hollow Knight as I did to Inside, which is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Like it's legit that high. And it's incredibly memorable for that reason. Equally, it's a proper one and done Inside, like more so than most other single player campaigns. It's a real one and done because it's so linear. But yeah, I'm really sorry, Indy. I hope we can still be friends, but I understand if not.
The worst part about it, Luke, is now Silksong never comes out.
That's true.
Yeah, but I've kept it inside. I mean, I think more people should experience that. So.
Well, there we go. I think Indy's already.
I've got to be honest. The chat agree. Inside, 77% voted to destroy it. No one voted for Hades, so that looks like that's probably the buy. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm still loving Hades, by the way. I've completed it so many times, churning through the story and stuff and trying to get the epic weapons, but absolutely love that game.
As much as it's controversial, look, I probably would have agreed with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've not played Inside. It sounds like I absolutely must.
Yeah, it was on Game Pass, wasn't it? Or still is?
Yeah. I don't think it is anymore. It was.
Great game.
It drops off. It's an incredible game. Incredible game.
Okay.
Well worth it.
So Flap or Mav, who wants the next set?
Go with Mav.
Okay.
Mav.
Let's go. Let's do this. All right.
Okay,
by the way, Hollow Knight GTFO. Sorry, Andy.
So Mav, I'm going to give you sort of my classic shooters category. Then I think for you, mate. So
I want to be good with that.
Did you tailor these to us? I don't understand. What's going on?
Yeah, so these games might these might be easy for you, mate, when it comes to it. So the three that I've got down for the classic shooters is N64 GoldenEye, the very original Doom. Bear in mind if you destroy Doom, what that means for the rest of Doom, and Perfect Dark on N64 as well.
Oh, okay. All right. I would destroy Perfect Dark. I would rent Doom, and I would buy GoldenEye. That's based on my love and experience of the franchises in the past. I love them all, but Doom was more of that. I didn't really. I don't even remember. Did it have multiplayer? I don't remember or not. But I played through it several times. I was completely addicted to playing that game. Found knew where everything was. Could completely run through it super fast when I was a kid. N64 just had that multiplayer. That was like the first game that I really got hooked into playing like a multiplayer shooter with my friends, right? I just nonstop, and plus the campaign was also really good. Perfect Dark, I played it; it was good, but I preferred GoldenEye. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Perfect Dark coming out though. Like I think it's gonna be awesome. So, yeah, that's
not
it.
now.
That's not now.
Yeah, that's true. It's not anymore, is it?
You can't reboot a game that never existed. That's
so.
That's
okay, I changed my mind.
So that's an interesting parallel universe question. So Perfect Dark doesn't exist. What do you get the initiative working on then?
Splinter Cell.
New IP.
Brand new IP. Another new IP. Okay.
New IP. 100%. Yeah, I agree with these guys. But it needs to be a stealth action game, just like Splinter Cell.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Flap, we'll go with you next then, mate. Which?
Sorry, Scott. Well, let's just end the poll. I asked the chat which game they would buy, and they've gone with the OG Doom.
I think I would
solid choice.
Well.
Yeah, no, I get that, and followed by the N64 GoldenEye. So I'm going to call that Rent, and no one went for Perfect Dark. So that's Destroy. So yeah, same.
There we go. Perfect Dark's gone. It's gone. So okay then, Flap, for you. I was going to save this one for Luke, but I think maybe I'll give it to you in hope that you annoy Luke.
It's very likely, to be honest. So,
so we'll go for some. We'll go for some PlayStation favorites here as well. So, so the three I'm going to give you then, Flap, are The Last Guardian, Shadow of the Colossus, and Bloodborne.
Oh, it's a tough one. Might be easy for you though, Flap.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this afterwards, Luke, as well.
Yeah.
I think I know what Luke would go with.
I'm glad you didn't ask me this.
Yeah.
I should have given that one to Marvin. Maybe give the shoe.
I've never played two of them, and I didn't like the third one. So that would have been a horrible question.
Oh, okay.
So have you, let's just check, Flap. Have you played these three?
Yeah. I've not played Shadow of the Colossus, so I'm guessing that one would be destroyed. I would rent Last Guardian, I think. Yeah. And buy Bloodborne.
Cool. Luke, would you agree with that, mate?
Buy Bloodborne. Yep. I think that's fair. It gets tricky then. So obviously I have played and loved both Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian. I think I would go with renting Shadow of the Colossus. I think it just edges out Last Guardian. Just.
Cool. Well, have we got time for another round? I've got three more sets, Flap.
Right, go on then. Let's go round again. Let's do Luke again, shall we? First,
so, Luke.
Actually, that means you don't get a go. Can you not do your own one?
I guess I could, but like I've kind of picked these, so it would be a little bit easy. So I've got three models. So that gives us one more round of the panelists.
Let's ask the chat then. Chat, can we put 3 games together? So put 3 games together for Scott to pick between. So from each of you, I'm going to need 3 games, and we'll pick the one that we think will probably give Scott the biggest nightmare. So just stick 3 games down. So by Redis,
Halo 1, Halo 2, and Halo 3.
That's literally what I was thinking about then.
It might be. But it would have to be Halo 3, wouldn't it? Because you'd at least get Halo 1 and 2 out of the deal.
Yeah, it would probably be Halo 3. Oh, yeah, I mean, if you looked at them individually, like if I was just rating them, I'd go 2, 3, 1, I think. but obviously I couldn't get rid of 1.
I agree.
And
Yeah, exactly.
2 is genuinely one of my favorite games ever. So 2 would be buy, 1 would be rent, and 3 would be destroy. I think in that case, I think that's fairly easy. When it's the same, when it's 3 games from the same franchise, I think it does make it a touch easier. You just destroy the last one, then at least you've got a couple in there. So we'll see if we can get a couple from the chat. But while we're waiting on those, Luke, we'll go to you next then, mate. So okay, so we'll go for. I was saving this one for Pox, but we'll give this one to you then. See if it works. So the original Banjo-Kazooie, N64 Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario Galaxy, and Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask.
Ooh, that is quite a tough one. Was it Mario? It was Galaxy, right?
Galaxy.
Yeah, I would. Oh yeah, I think this is quite easy for me. I would buy Galaxy. I would rent Majora's Mask, and I'd destroy Banjo-Kazooie.
You monster.
It's not as good as either of those. I mean, look, if you destroy Galaxy, you get rid of everything after that, and Majora's Mask, you get rid of everything after that. So
maybe Banjo-Kazooie didn't really fit in that set.
I guess
I just couldn't think of anything else that really fit. And I originally had Sonic, but I tried to make it more Nintendo centric, so I took Sonic.
I mean, if you destroy Banjo-Kazooie, then you don't get nuts and bolts, which I think's a fair sort of trade-off to make. I'm not that sad about that. So maybe to make it even harder for Pucks, you should have put like Kingdom Hearts in there. Get rid of Banjo-Kazooie, put Kingdom Hearts. He would have had a cry on air.
That would have made it easy for him. He would have just picked Kingdom Hearts and
that's true. Time, if you remember. Kingdom Hearts by destroy Zelda.
Alrighty. Mav. Okay, I'll give you these 3. These are just kind of 3 random ones that I thought. One of them was because Indy mentioned that it was missing from the list of games that we built down to 2 last time. One of them's actually quite topical, and then the other one's one of my favorite original Xbox games. So we've got BioShock. This is for you, Mav. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory.
Oh, jeez.
And Ninja Gaiden Black.
Oh, my gosh. That's like, okay, BioShock. Oh, man, this is hard. This is rough because, like, BioShock, I had a hard time initially getting into the game. For some reason, then I had the weird trajectory of actually loving BioShock 2 and then going back and playing BioShock 1 again and then loving it. Mm-hmm. But the other 2, so Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is and what was the third one again?
Ninja Gaiden Black.
Oh, jeez.
Gaiden Black.
All right.
But that's pronounced.
This is easy actually. Okay.
Oh, really?
Splinter Cell Chaos Theory by it's like one of my top games all time. 100%. Ninja Gaiden Black, Rent, and then kill BioShock.
Oh wow!
Indy's
really?
Not going to be happy. I specifically put BioShock in there for Indy, and now it's gone. Yeah.
He can go visit that in the graveyard with Hollow Knight.
Yeah. Take 2 bunches of flowers. Yeah.
Would anyone have a different opinion of Mav?
I think I'd buy BioShock.
Yeah.
I think I would rent Chaos Theory, and I would get rid of Ninja Gaiden Black.
Oh, that's one of my favorite games.
I love it. I absolutely love it, but just not at the level of those other 2.
I'd have bought I love the atmosphere of BioShock. I really bought into the whole underwater thing. I thought it was done so well.
Yeah.
I love the build up to the game as well. It was the guy, I can't remember his name. Who's the guy that kind of led the design on it?
Ken Levine.
Ken Levine, yes.
Ken Levine. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, they were doing some sort of video diaries and stuff. It really sucked me in that world. I loved that.
Yeah,
even the BioShock on the way, isn't there?
There is. Yep.
Yeah.
Made by 2K.
Unless Ken Levine is involved, I don't care.
No, he's not. He's got his own studio. He's making something else.
Yeah, although he wasn't involved with BioShock 2, and I did like that game a lot. Yeah. So I guess it's still possible. There's a lot to go on.
I've got 3 for you, Scott.
Go for it. And I've got one more for you, Flap.
Okay. So I've just kind of thrown these together, and they're very sort of similar. It'll be interesting to see where you go with these. So I'm going to go Forza 4.
Motorsport or Horizon?
Sorry, Forza Horizon. Sorry,
Oh,
Forza Horizon
okay.
4. Fable 3 and Sea of Thieves.
Okay, that is tough. That is tough.
Like, it can't be tough because of one of those games in there. And I'm interested to see your opinion on that.
Yes,
So-
there's an easy one to ditch, but it comes down to 2 for me.
So the thing is I love Sea of Thieves. I love
I know you do.
Fable, and
That's
I
why I
love
put it in there.
Forza. Okay. But if I got rid of 4, I still have 3. And 3 was my favorite when it comes to Horizon, I think. If I get rid of Fable 3, though, I do still have Fable 1 and 2. But Sea of Thieves is by itself. But the thing is, I can only buy Sea of Thieves. You couldn't rent it. Because...
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You couldn't really rent it.
But you can play it for a weekend.
Yeah. I'll talk about Sea of Thieves at launch or Sea of Thieves now. Because you could probably play everything in Sea of Thieves at launch in about 6 hours. So
Sea of Thieves now. Sea of Thieves now.
Okay, so I am going to... I'm going to destroy Sea of Thieves.
That's it. To me, that was the obvious one. I think that was the given for me. I don't know about you, Luke. Was you?
No, I actually just on that list again. I think the obvious one to destroy is Fable 3 because it's an abomination of a Fable game.
But it's,
equally you
it's
wouldn't
what
get a
comes
new
after.
Fable.
Yeah,
Equally you wouldn't get a new Fable,
Yeah.
but we don't. That's not an assured. I know it's Playground. I'm sure it'll be fantastic, but it's not.
Just wait till you get a Fable live service. That's gonna be awesome.
We did. We had Fable
That's
Legends
it.
briefly before Microsoft went. You know what? We don't want that. So.
Yeah. I played the beta for that.
Yeah, so did I.
That's basically my thinking for that, Luke, is I'm so excited for Fable by Playground. And I can't live in a world where I don't see what that is. No, actually, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't change it. I kind of pinned now. It's already gone. And then I will buy Forza and rent Fable.
Okay.
I think this is how it'll go. I think that was a tough one though, because it kind of wasn't one sort of standout. You know, if you put Halo in there, you know, it's kind of a standout for me. So
it's different genres as well, but yeah.
We need to have one of these sets where they're like all mediocre games. To see what people choose.
Yeah.
So the chat agreed. The chat have destroyed. It's still it's changing as we speak. But Sea of Thieves is going to be destroyed. Looks like Fable 3 was next, so we'll call that rent, and then Forza Horizon 4. People are going to buy by the looks of things.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Video of 3-bit says Halo will survive any lists, and he said goodbye to Sea of Thieves. So, hang on, no, Fable 3's just bought back.
Come on, make the right choice.
There we go. Luke, you've influenced the chat.
People.
That means we don't get the new Fable.
Yeah,
it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make in that list.
Yeah, well, that does free up Playground games.
I do like Sea of Thieves, yeah,
okay,
but
cool.
I don't. There's a difference between I don't love Sea of Thieves, but I absolutely despise Fable 3. So it's more a decision on that basis.
Yeah.
What I would love to do is pose this question: can you put a poll in the chat just for 3-bit? Can we make this happen real quick?
Go on then. Yeah, what poll do you want?
Okay, Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, hang on.
Halo CE.
Bear with me. Hang on. Which
would
destroy? Hang on. Sorry. Which would you destroy?
And Bully.
What was it again? What was the first one?
Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah.
Halo CE. And a Bully.
Yeah. Bully.
Yeah, Bully. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've never played Bully. I really should.
3-bit. He can't make this. He's just said Halo would survive any list. These are like his 3 favorite games of all time, and he is the most conflicted person on earth right now, and I love it. Okay, sorry about that.
The thing is, on that list, objectively, Sonic Adventure 2 is probably the worst game. But
Yes.
I could not bring myself to destroy Sonic Adventure 2 because my memories of things like the Chow Garden, the final boss fight in the song, which are so nostalgic for me. Yeah. I'd probably.
He's not choosing. He refuses to choose. You're going to have to force him into it, Mav, I'm afraid.
Well, we're going to choose for him. The poll's going to choose for him, I guess. And it's Sonic
true.
Adventure 2 at the minute is the one that's going.
That's true, actually, 3. But this decision's been made for you, to be honest.
Yeah.
So Sonic Adventure 2 is the one that's being destroyed at the moment. Bully is being rented, and Halo. Oh, I've put Hail instead of Halo. Halo being saved by the looks of it. Wow.
Yeah. Right, I've got one more for you then, Flap.
Yes.
If you want. So this is the meme collection. So the collection of games, Xbox, they've only got 3 franchises, Flap. They've only got 3 games. Got Halo, Gears, and Forza. That's it. Okay? So we need to get rid of that meme by destroying one of these games entirely. So Halo 1, Gears 1, Forza 1. Which one you buying? Which one you running?
Well, I've got rid of Gears twice now, and that's not going to go down well with Stubbs.
Stubbs is in the chat as well.
Can we just clarify when you say Forza? Does that include Forza Motorsport?
The original.
But how about Forza Horizon? Does that never get born either?
I don't think it does. In a world without Motorsport, Horizon doesn't exist either. Yeah. See, I think that question is probably easy without that little caveat.
Yeah, because it is. Because if it was just Forza Motorsport, I'd probably get rid of Forza Motorsport. But if we're talking about 2 branches of the same kind of game,
yeah, and it's like what? That's like 11 games, 12 games in Motorsport and Horizon, isn't it? Even the Fast and Furious DLC goes Flap. Consider that.
Wow.
I would also have to ask you to consider the impact Halo being destroyed has on Xbox.
Probably console first-person shooters in general.
If Halo is destroyed, what happens to Xbox? So, no, but just in context of the games.
I'm torn between 2 that we need to destroy. One of them I've destroyed twice already. It's between Gears and Forza. I can't work out which one to destroy. Oh God, because I don't mind. I don't mind Forza Motorsport.
Isn't in that conversation, Flap. If I'm
honest. Like you say. It's about the Xbox brand and the more holistic side of the Xbox brand and what Halo means to it, I suppose. More so than obviously Gears and Forza, I think. So it would feel like I am saving a legacy, if that makes sense. I really did enjoy Forza Motorsport Cracky 3, I think it was. I had the wheel and everything. But I had Gears before I had Forza. Oh, God. Right. Okay, well, I'm going to buy Halo.
Good choice. Wise choice.
I think I'm going to rent Gears and destroy Forza.
Now, how much is that? Because you've already pissed off the Gears fans twice already. I'm just messing.
No, I don't. The thing is, I suppose there are other driving simulators out there to a certain degree, particularly on the PlayStation side, obviously. So you could go and scratch that itch there. Gears, Gears isn't unique, is it? But no, I'm going to destroy Forza. They're going to have to come up with something new.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. Just bring back Project Gotham Racing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, there we go. PGR.
There we go. Yeah, PGR needs to
PGR. Yeah.
Sorted.
There you go.
Yeah. So Gear survives this time, third time.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, only by the narrowest of margins. That was a real tough one. That was real tough. And like I say, not necessarily because Gears versus Forza, it's because Forza is actually, like you say, 2 kind of franchises that kind of branch off from each other. But because I actually prefer the Forza Horizons than I do the Motorsports.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Wow. And to be honest, there are other Forza Horizon type games out there, but wow, hey, that was tight. Have we got any more for Scott? Mav, Luke, is there anything you just want to throw together for Scott? 3 mediocre games. What's really middle of the road?
Just destroy them all.
Let's go with how about Far Cry, Assassin's Creed.
Oh,
let's do Far Cry 3, Assassin's Creed 2.
You just pick franchises I can't stand.
Far Cry 3, Assassin's Creed 2.
It's got to be another Ubisoft game, surely.
Or
and Death Stranding.
Oh no, that one's easy to kill. That's too easy.
Yeah.
Or let's go with another Ubisoft franchise. Let's go with Rainbow Six Vegas.
Oh, first one.
Okay. So this is a little bit easy on the buy side of things. I'll probably buy Rainbow. I think I love Rainbow Six. Siege, love Rainbow Six. Was it? Oh, what was it called? Was it Black?
Vegas. Oh,
the one of the ones first Xbox Live games.
Yeah, there was like Black Arrow or something like that. I don't remember.
And Vegas. So Rainbow, I'd buy. I really do actually. I do really like the Rainbow Six franchise. In terms of the two, just get rid of them both. No, no. That's unfair because I did at least one Assassin's Creed game.
That's going to upset Boardman Gamer. He's an AC fan.
I'd rent Assassin's Creed and destroy Far Cry with pleasure as well, if I'm being perfectly honest. So yeah, I think that's where we'll leave that one.
Yeah. Is that right? Is that the right decision, Luke? Is that the right choice?
Which
Assassin's Creed was
Far
it again,
Cry?
Mav?
It was 2, wasn't it?
Two,
AC2.
okay.
It's a really hard one actually because AC2 is amazing. Like it's an amazing game. So I'd probably buy AC2, rent Far Cry 3 because it's still the best Far Cry, and I'd get rid of Rainbow Six.
Man, I loved Rainbow Six. Wow. Okay, that's cool. Mav, because you put this together.
Oh, you can't turn this back on me now, can't you?
No, just
I was going
to. Yeah. Scott's already nuked.
So I'll definitely buy Far Cry 3. I'm going to rent Rainbow Six and then destroy Assassin's Creed 2, which is the best Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah. Well, that was a good list. I would have struggled with. I think I'd have bought Rainbow Six. I love that game. But wow, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I think that pretty much rounds up the show, to be honest. And it's been an absolutely fantastic show. I've had such a blast. I'm so grateful to the entire panel, bringing all of your news, your opinions, your expertise. Really grateful for that chat. You have been amazing this week, as you always are, but particularly tonight, you really got involved. I hope you like the polls that we run, and just playing some of these sort of games at the end as well. It's always a bit lighthearted, but it's quite good. It does get you thinking about some of your favourite franchises, and if you did have to pick one of your favourite children, who it would actually be. And I do absolutely love that. But let's just do a quick rundown of the panel before we finally sign off, and we'll start with you, Mav, if that's okay. Thank you, my friend, for being here. You obviously host your own channel, Fun Speculation. It is going from strength to strength. It's absolutely fantastic to see. I remember back in the early days having you on the show with who was you on the show with?
Fugly.
I haven't seen Fugly in the chat for a long time. I hope he's okay. But thank you for being here, my friend. I can't believe anyone listening to this show isn't aware of your work, but just in case, where can we find you?
Super appreciate it. Panel, this was a super fun time. Loved talking with you guys again. So thank you for having me. Always a great time here. And chat, you're right. The chat was absolutely freaking on fire for this. It was a blast, like reading all the comments. Everybody was having a lot of fun and engaged with the conversation. So that's always awesome. But if you are not familiar with me, check out Fun Speculation on YouTube, where we have streams and podcasts and more. Lots of fun things. Hey, we got Xbox Ultimate Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time with the Magnificent Seven. We have a blast over there, including 3-Bit and the rest of the panel, including my wife is also there. We also have Fun Pop, a podcast, which is on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we talk Marvel, DC, comic books, TV shows, movies, and more. We're going to talk about Shang-Chi this week, so we're looking forward to that. And also we have one more thing in the works, planning probably for Saturdays. So I'll announce that later once I get more details together. But super appreciate you guys again. And let's get some more outros. And I can't wait to hopefully be back here in the future. So, with
fantastic. Well, the door is always open, my friend. And I always used to think Boom was one of the hardest working people in the podcasting game. But my God, I don't know. We had the chat in the green room. I don't know where you find time to work and sleep because you're always live on the channel, and it's fantastic to see.
Well, that's why I always look like a zombie when I'm streaming because I'm exhausted. But I'm playing games, having fun.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, Luke, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Yes, we were a chap down tonight in the GPG crew, but I enjoyed the game. That didn't piss you off too much, Luke, by the sounds of things.
No, I was pretty happy with that one. Yeah, it came out quite well.
Okay.
I'll sleep well tonight.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
I did a really bad job if that's the case.
That should be your aim next time, just raising my blood pressure.
Okay, and Scott, if you can just try a little bit harder next time.
I will do.
I think you're right. I think we need 3 crap games, and you've got to save one of them. That would be something.
I just need to find what games Luke hates the most, and then make him buy one of them. He's going to spend his hard-earned cash on one really shit game.
Exactly. Fantastic. Well, gents, thank you very much for being here. Always a pleasure. Hopefully we will be 4 strong again next week with the full GPG crew. Chat, as I've said, thank you very much for being here. Hit the like, share and subscribe button if you can. Very grateful, and obviously help us out on the socials, spread the word. Thank you very much for everyone. Hope you have a fantastic week. Safe gaming, and we will see you on the next one.